Have you ever noticed how exhausting it is to keep being the nice one, always smiling, agreeing, smoothing every edge so no one feels uneasy, until one day you realize the peace you protect is never your own? The Stoics saw it clearly. Virtue isn't obedience, it's strength. So what happens when you stop performing goodness and start living it? Stay with me. As we step into this first chapter, picture the world not as it claims to be, but as it truly is. A crowded stage where applause often goes not to the virtuous, but to the loud, where the cunning are crowned before the kind, where quiet hearts are mistaken for weak ones. Look around, not at what people say, but at what they celebrate. Who holds the power? Who shapes the story? It's rarely the most honest or the most generous. More often, it's those who carry calm like armor, who speak with clarity, and who know exactly where their boundaries begin and end. That realization stings, because many of us were taught that if we're kind enough, patient enough, selfless enough, the world will notice. But the truth, goodness alone does not command respect. You can live a lifetime serving others, bending your spine until it nearly breaks, saying yes when your heart screams no. Yet the moment your usefulness fades, the world doesn't thank you. It forgets you. No outcry, no farewell, just replaced. That's the quiet punishment for confusing virtue with obedience. The Stoics saw this trap long before we named it. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire with both compassion and discipline, never mistook mercy for weakness. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." But being one to him did not mean surrender. He knew that virtue without wisdom becomes a chain others will gladly hold. Seneca warned of the same fate. He who serves all loses himself. When you try to be endlessly agreeable, avoiding friction like it's fire, you tell the world, "I'm harmless," and the world listens. It stops seeing you as a person and begins to see you as a tool. You become accessible but invisible, useful but unseen. Why do we admire those who say no more than those who say yes? Why do we follow those who speak simply rather than those who endlessly seek approval? Because they hold their ground. They don't trade their dignity for belonging. They don't beg to be accepted. They define acceptance by their own terms. Now, imagine this. Two people in a crowded room. One constantly nods, laughs at jokes they don't find funny, and agrees with every opinion to stay liked. The other speaks less, but carries a quiet gravity. When they speak, the room listens. The difference isn't arrogance, it's weight. The Stoics called it prohairesis, the mastery of one's own will. To have it is to be unshakable, unmoved by flattery, untouched by rejection. That's the kind of strength Marcus lived by. He wasn't feared, he was respected. And respect, unlike approval, cannot be bought. It must be embodied. A Stoic doesn't walk into the world demanding reverence. He earns it through restraint, presence, and an unwavering sense of inner command. Machiavelli once claimed a ruler should choose fear over love, but the Stoics offered a better path. Choose respect, born from composure and integrity. To be firm is not to be cruel. To be calm is not to be cold. True firmness is silent consequence, the knowledge that you can act when needed, but never from impulse. Such a person doesn't threaten others. They simply refuse to be ignored. And that refusal changes everything. You start to move differently, speak differently. You no longer chase approval like air. You breathe from within. People feel it, even if they don't understand it. They may not love you for it, but they will sense your gravity. They will weigh their words before testing your peace. So ask yourself, what part of you still aches for permission? What fear makes you soften your truth, shrink your voice, or overextend your kindness until it empties you? The Stoics would tell you this: what you call kindness might just be avoidance, a way to escape conflict, a way to stay liked at the cost of your self-respect. But peace earned through silence isn't peace. It's surrender disguised as serenity. And nothing corrodes the soul faster than pretending that harmony exists while your spirit is collapsing under the weight of unspoken truth. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, loss, and deceit, yet he remained steady. Why? Because he understood that the respect worth having begins not in others' eyes, but in your own. You can't expect the world to treat you with dignity if you treat yourself as expendable. A person without boundaries isn't virtuous, they're vulnerable. Virtue is not submission. It is disciplined strength, tempered by compassion, directed by reason. In this first lesson, that is the mirror, the cost of being good without being grounded. It's not about becoming ruthless. It's about becoming real. You cannot inspire respect through endless agreement. You cannot build worth by erasing yourself. You become respected the moment you stop chasing applause and start embodying stillness. You don't need to shout to be heard. You only need to stand where you are and not move when the world pushes. This is where the path begins, a shift from approval to authenticity, from performance to presence. And as we move forward, we'll go deeper into the quiet roots of this need to please, where it was planted, and how to finally pull it out. Because before you can reclaim your power, you must first understand why you gave it away. Moving into the next chapter, imagine a child, curious, fearless, alive. They speak their truth without hesitation. They laugh loudly, ask questions that make adults pause, and love without calculation. But slowly, the world begins to train that child. Not with wisdom, but with correction. Don't do that, it's not nice. Be polite. Don't speak like that, you'll upset them. And little by little, something pure begins to fade. The voice softens, the laughter dims, the edges are smoothed. Not because the child has become wiser, but because they've learned the first unspoken rule of survival. To be loved, do not disturb. That is where the mask begins. No one is born desperate for approval. That craving to please, to blend in, to be good. It's not your nature. It's your conditioning. You were taught to trade honesty for harmony, to sacrifice your truth for acceptance. Each time you stayed quiet when something inside screamed to speak, each time you said yes when your soul said no, a small part of your will slipped away. The Stoics called it proeresis, the rational faculty that governs choice, the very core of your freedom. And every surrender chips at it. What begins as a strategy to stay safe becomes a habit of self-erasure. It feels noble at first. You tell yourself you're being kind, humble, understanding. You convince yourself that swallowing your truth is compassion. But look closely. Is it kindness or fear? Is it virtue or obedience? When your silence keeps the peace at the cost of your peace, that is not goodness. It is a quiet betrayal of yourself. Seneca warned, "He who always agrees with the crowd, even in good times, is already preparing his downfall." To always yield is not humility, it is submission to perception. It places others' judgment above your own reason. And when that happens, integrity begins to tear. There was once a man named Elias. Everyone admired his gentleness. At work, he was the first to volunteer, the last to complain. In his family, he never raised his voice. People called him wise, patient, kind. But inside, Elias was exhausted. He agreed to things he didn't believe in. He ignored disrespect just to keep the peace. And one evening, after being passed over for a promotion yet again, he didn't even feel anger. He felt nothing. That's when he realized he hadn't just silenced his pain. He had silenced himself. That's the price of confusing acceptance with worth. When your safety depends on silence, you live inside a gilded cage. The Stoics would have recognized Elias immediately, a man enslaved not by chains, but by perception. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." The fear of being disliked is not humility, it's bondage. It makes you shrink from your own reason, your logos, and hand your mind to the crowd. You start to believe that to say no is selfish, that to assert boundaries is unkind, that self-respect is arrogance, and soon you no longer know where your true self ends and your performance begins. That performance is endless. Today they like you, tomorrow they don't. You keep bending, hoping to be enough, but the measure always shifts. And while you bend, your essence withers in the shadows. This mask of goodness, the polished, polite, ever-pleasant persona, is not virtue. It's fear stitched into a smile. Fear of rejection, fear of exclusion, fear of not being enough. But fear, as the Stoics taught, is not a teacher. It distorts perception. It creates false choices. It leads you to mistake avoidance for peace. True peace, ataraxia, comes from alignment, from living by your own reasoned choice, not from walking on eggshells for approval. Marcus Aurelius never sought to be loved. He sought to be just. Epictetus didn't beg to be understood. He labored to understand himself. They knew that virtue doesn't bend for applause. It stands firm, silent, and sufficient unto itself. So ask yourself now, when did your voice become an apology? When did you decide that pleasing others was safer than being whole? When did being good start costing you your soul? Every time you compromise your truth for comfort, you reinforce the lie that harmony is worth more than integrity. But harmony built on fear is fragile. It shatters the moment you stop performing. You were not meant to live as everyone's mirror. You were meant to live as your own compass. The world may misread your boundaries. Let them. They may call you cold, distant, changed. Let them. For the cost of pleasing everyone is the permanent sacrifice of yourself. Marcus said, "Be tolerant with others, but strict with yourself." Tolerance without truth is weakness. Strictness without compassion is cruelty. The balance, the Stoic balance, is strength guided by virtue, not ruled by fear. Here's the paradox. When you stop begging to be liked, you start earning respect. When you stop bending to fit, you begin to stand upright. And when you stop silencing yourself, your presence begins to speak louder than any performance ever could. From here, we begin the next step, the unraveling of this illusion of goodness. Because true virtue isn't about appearing kind. It's about living with clarity, presence, and unapologetic strength. And that is what we'll explore next. Advancing to the third chapter, imagine walking through life believing that your goodness will speak for itself. You do the right thing, you tell the truth, you give your best. And somewhere deep down, you believe that one day the world will see it and reward you for it. But then, reality intervenes. You watch others, louder, sharper, more strategic, rise while you stay overlooked. You realize that virtue on its own does not shield you from being dismissed. The Stoics never promised it would. They knew the world doesn't always honor substance. It rewards perception. And that's where most people fall asleep, mistaking purity of intent for protection. Marcus Aurelius lived at the center of an empire filled with betrayal and war. He ruled with compassion, yes, but also with steel. He said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." Yet he never claimed that being one would make life fair. Because the world does not bow to goodness, it bows to gravity. You may live with fairness and honesty, but if your presence carries no weight, if your boundaries are soft, your virtue will vanish into the noise. People don't see hearts. They see energy. They see posture. They see what you tolerate. And if what they see is softness without structure, they will mistake it for permission. Epictetus sharpened the truth even further. He said, "You are a role. Play it well." But he never said your audience would be kind. He knew that not everyone watching does so with admiration. Some watch to test your edges, some to measure what they can take. That's why inner virtue, while essential, is not enough. It must be embodied, carried, expressed with quiet precision. The Stoic walks through the world not naive, not cynical, but aware that humans believe what they perceive. And perception, when left ungoverned, becomes the leash others hold on you. Seneca understood this better than anyone. He served under Nero, one of history's most unpredictable rulers. And in that court of ambition and deceit, he learned that virtue without vigilance is suicide. "He who acts like a good man among those who are not," he wrote, "prepares his own ruin." His message wasn't to abandon virtue, but to wield it with discernment. Virtue should never be worn as a costume. It must be carried as a blade, sharp, balanced, silent until needed. In the real world, kindness without structure is not virtue, it's exposure. The Stoics didn't confuse gentleness with fragility. They saw strength and kindness as siblings, not opposites. When Marcus wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who did the injury," he didn't mean retreat. He meant ascend, rise above the pettiness, lead through composure, not chaos. Because the strongest power is calm command. To be able to say nothing yet unsettle everything around you simply by refusing to lose your stillness. Picture a man walking through a storm, wind, noise, insults, all crashing against him. He doesn't flinch, not because he feels nothing, but because he governs what he feels. That's the Stoic warrior, not armored in anger, but in clarity, not fueled by rage, but by reason. The Stoics were not passive men. Marcus Aurelius commanded legions. Epictetus endured cruelty as a slave and still chose wisdom over hatred. Seneca survived politics as sharp as knives. None of them mistook morality for weakness. They knew that virtue must be guarded, not displayed, and that life among the unwise requires not fear, but precision. To live as a Stoic is not to seek safety and goodness. It's to cultivate the kind of presence that cannot be manipulated by fear, flattery, or threat. "You must live among the wicked," Seneca said, "but live like yourself." That is the middle path. It's not coldness, it's clarity. It doesn't demand that you harden your heart, only that you sharpen your perception. Because understanding the nature of others doesn't mean condemning them. It means refusing to betray yourself for their comfort. So, no, you don't need to become ruthless, but you do need to stop being blind. You can live with compassion and still hold consequence. You can walk gently and still leave an impression that no one dares to overlook. Stoicism isn't about avoiding harm, it's about transcending it. Seeing through deception, meeting insult with composure, answering injustice not with rage, but with measured strength. From here, we cross into the next truth, the thin line between virtue and voluntary slavery, the moment when being good becomes self-abandonment, And the first step to walking that line begins when you stop apologizing for having a spine. Entering this fourth chapter, imagine a person who prides themselves on being good, the one who forgives quickly, never complains, and always says yes. They tell themselves it's strength, but inside, something feels hollow. Their kindness has become a leash others pull when convenient. That's the quiet tragedy of so many lives. The belief that to be virtuous, you must be endlessly agreeable. That to prove your goodness, you must absorb every slight, every disrespect, without resistance. But, let's speak plainly, that's not kindness. That's naivety disguised as virtue. It's weakness dressed in the robes of morality. And if you don't learn to see the difference, the world will make you its emotional servant, useful, gentle, disposable. True Stoic kindness doesn't ask you to vanish. It asks you to see clearly. It demands proeresis, the rational power to choose your response instead of surrendering it. To be good doesn't mean you must live as a smiling shadow, nodding at everyone, pleasing everyone, bleeding yourself dry for those who would never lift a hand in return. That's not virtue. That's self-betrayal. The moment you mistake compliance for compassion, you abandon your own reason, your dignity, your strength. Seneca once said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." And what is constant self-erasure, if not the refusal to be tested? Never drawing lines, never allowing your values to meet resistance. Let me tell you about Maria. She was a teacher known for her warmth, always the first to help, the last to leave. She stayed late, answered midnight emails, covered for absent colleagues. Everyone loved her because she never said no, but over time, her silence became expectation. When she finally declined a last-minute favor, she was met not with understanding, but with disappointment, not because she had changed, but because she had trained others to expect her endless compliance. Her virtue had been mistaken for servitude, her integrity for availability. That's the curse of naive goodness. It believes the world will mirror its heart. It expects fairness to be returned, kindness to be matched, sacrifice to be seen, but it rarely is. Instead, what comes back is disillusionment, quiet resentment, and the heavy ache of unspoken bitterness. Naive goodness projects nobility onto others who have not earned it, and then grieves when they fail to live up to the illusion. The Stoics offer a sharper way. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning that people would lie, cheat, disappoint, and still he must remain just. But notice, he never said he must endure abuse. Epictetus never taught that virtue required silence in the face of disrespect. On the contrary, he urged us to stop attaching our worth to what lies outside our control, to others' praise, approval, or opinions of our goodness. Those are not yours to command. True Stoic kindness is firm. It sets boundaries. It says no without guilt. It walks away when peace demands distance. It knows that not everyone deserves your best. And giving your best to those who drain you is not generosity, it's the mismanagement of your soul. And yes, you can be compassionate and still be respected. You can be just and still be feared. You can love deeply and still be someone others think twice before crossing. Because strength, when paired with compassion, becomes presence. It becomes influence. The Stoics never encouraged cruelty, but they despised self-deception. And nothing is more deceptive than believing that goodness means submission. So ask yourself, is your kindness protecting your dignity or exposing your vulnerability? Is it born from strength or from the fear of being disliked if you draw a line? Because if your idea of goodness means accepting crumbs, hiding your anger, excusing others' disrespect, and silencing your own needs, then you are not being good. You are being dominated, and domination has no place in a Stoic life. Marcus lived surrounded by betrayal and yet kept his integrity. Seneca faced cruelty and still held his reason. Epictetus endured bondage, yet stood freer than his masters. Their lesson is clear. You don't prove virtue by enduring mistreatment. You prove it by staying true to yourself in the midst of it. The Stoic heart is not cold, it's clear. It loves, but it does not beg. It helps, but it does not serve. It forgives, but it never forgets what it's learned. From here, the path becomes narrower, the place where courage meets compassion, where silence is no longer submission, but strategy. This is the middle way between hardness and weakness, between pride and servitude. The point where you reclaim your space in the world, calmly, deliberately, without betraying your soul. Because your life doesn't need more politeness, it needs power, anchored in virtue, and that is where we now begin. At this stage, something begins to shift. After years of saying yes when you meant no, of letting your peace be eaten away piece by piece, you finally wake up. You see the cost of your own compliance, and in that awakening, you make a promise, never again. But what follows is not always strength. Sometimes it's just the opposite mask. You stop being soft and start being stone. You build walls where you once built bridges. You think coldness will save you from being used. But what you've built isn't strength. It's armor made of fear. The Stoics warned us of this, the reaction born from imbalance. It's not transformation, it's overcorrection, and like all extremes, it's another kind of prison. Because when you abandon your true nature in the name of survival, you're not walking toward freedom. You're just hiding behind a new disguise. Freedom, real freedom, isn't found in swinging from one extreme to the other. It's found in returning to the center. Seneca wrote, "No man is free who is a slave to his reactions." To the Stoic, freedom is not about doing whatever you feel. It's about choosing your response with reason and dignity. It's not the loud rejection of your past self, but the calm reclamation of your true one. When you stop performing virtue for applause and start living from alignment, not apology, that's when peace begins. So how do you stop being too nice without betraying your essence? How do you stand firm without losing warmth? It begins with reclaiming your voice. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that speaking up makes you selfish, that setting limits means you don't care, that disagreement equals arrogance. But selfishness is not asserting yourself. Selfishness is demanding that someone else shrink so you can stay comfortable. Speaking truth without cruelty isn't arrogance, it's dignity. When you say, "I do not accept this," you are not causing harm. You are honoring your proheresis, your reasoned judgment, the very core of Stoic strength. Next comes the art of refusal. No is not a wall, it's a boundary made of respect. It doesn't need to be shouted, it doesn't need to be justified. A quiet, unwavering no spoken from clarity carries more weight than 1,000 apologies. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it's not right, don't do it. If it's not true, don't say it." That applies as much to your words as to your limits. Those who never learn to say no will always live under the rule of those who never ask permission. Then pay attention to who resists your transformation. When you start changing, when you stop being the person everyone can take for granted, some will not applaud. They'll call you difficult, cold, or selfish. But remember what Epictetus taught. It's not what they say, it's how you respond that defines you. Their discomfort is not your failure. It's proof that the quiet contract of your compliance has been broken. Growth, to those who benefited from your silence, feels like betrayal, but it isn't betrayal. It's honesty finally given shape. Think of Lena, the dependable friend, the helper, the one who never asked for anything. Everyone admired her because she never said no. But one day she started changing. She began to rest, to decline, to speak her mind. And her friend said, "You've changed." And she had. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't distant. She was simply whole. For the first time, she respected herself more than the version of her others preferred. And finally, released the need to be universally understood. Not everyone will understand your evolution. They're not meant to. Marcus reminded us, waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Be one. Your task is not to maintain the image of the old you, it's to stay aligned with the truest you. You owe no loyalty to the version that kept others comfortable. Your loyalty is to the self that stands upright, even when misunderstood. Replace the desire to be accepted with a commitment to authenticity. When you act from truth instead of approval, you might unsettle some, but you'll inspire others. More importantly, you'll respect yourself. And self-respect is the only kind of respect no one can take away. This path doesn't ask you to become harsh. It asks you to become whole. Seneca never told us to be feared. He told us to be firm. Marcus never asked us to please. He asked us to live in accordance with reason. Now comes the turning point. The choice between continuing to dilute yourself to stay liked or finally stepping into the kind of presence that needs no permission. Because what's at stake isn't just how others see you. It's whether you'll spend this one brief life ruled by the expectations of others or ruled by your own inner clarity. Entering this final chapter, let's stop pretending. How long will you keep wearing that mask? The good one, the soft-spoken one, the ever-available and endlessly agreeable version of yourself. How long will you keep trading your time, your voice, your dignity, just to maintain an image that was never truly yours, but one the world conveniently expects you to uphold? The world rewards your silence because it benefits from it. It calls you kind while quietly taking everything your gentleness allows. You've mistaken their comfort for your purpose. But what you've built is not virtue. It's captivity, a polite prison dressed in praise. They call you reliable because you never say no. They call you peaceful because you never resist. They call you good because you never fight back. But what they truly mean is this: you're no threat. You're easy to ignore. This is the truth few dare to speak. No one is coming to save you. No one will hand you back the years you gave away trying to please. No one will reward your quiet endurance, because as long as you keep making yourself useful to others at the expense of yourself, there will always be someone ready to use you. That's not cruelty, it's simply nature. And nature, as the Stoics taught, does not answer to intentions, only to actions. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal and deceit, yet he never once begged the world to be fair. He understood the law of life. The world reflects what you tolerate. You can keep living the script others handed you, or you can finally step off the stage. Because if you continue to trade authenticity for acceptance, the cost is always the same: resentment, erosion, and disappearance. You vanish inside the very kindness you thought would protect you. Seneca once said, "He who does not prevent what he can will suffer what he must." That is the law of silence. When you refuse to draw lines, the world will write them for you. When you refuse to choose, the world will choose on your behalf. And when you keep swallowing your voice, do not be surprised when no one listens for it anymore. But there's another way, a quieter rebellion, not of noise but of resolve. You can decide that your generosity will no longer be automatic, that it will be offered, not extracted, that your kindness will flow from strength, not fear, that you will no longer seek approval like a beggar waiting at the door of validation, because approval, once chased, becomes addiction, but self-respect, once claimed, becomes freedom. Imagine a person walking through the marketplace of life. Around them, everyone trades attention for worth, praise for peace. But this person walks differently. They give when they choose, speak when it matters, and refuse to barter their values for belonging. People may call them proud, but what they really are is whole. They've stopped auditioning for acceptance. Their peace is not up for sale. That's what the Stoics meant by freedom, the kind that cannot be revoked because it doesn't depend on the outside world. Epictetus, once a slave, said it best: "No man is free who is not master of himself." True liberation is not found in control over others, but in mastery over the self. The moment you stop asking for permission to exist, the chains fall away. You become untouchable, not because you harden, but because you finally align. You are no longer fighting to be seen. You are seen because you stand in truth. And yes, it will confuse some. Those who once fed on your compliance will question your calm defiance. They'll accuse you of changing, of becoming cold. But let them. You owe no explanation for your awakening. This isn't arrogance. It's clarity. A Stoic's kindness is deliberate, not desperate. It gives freely but never foolishly. It forgives but does not forget what it cost. It helps but it does not kneel. So, stop pretending that silence is peace. It's not. It's submission. Stop believing that politeness will protect you. It won't. The world doesn't respect those who never draw lines. It walks right over them. Strength doesn't need cruelty. Clarity is enough. You don't have to shout, only to stop apologizing for existing. This is where your power begins, not in the noise of approval, but in the stillness of self-respect. The Stoics didn't teach us to escape life. They taught us to stand inside it, unshaken. So now, as you walk forward, let your calm become your armor. Let your silence be chosen, not forced. Let your strength be gentle, but undeniable. Because the day you stop asking to be seen, you become impossible to overlook. And that, at last, is what it means to be free. If this message spoke to you, take it as a reminder that real strength is quiet, calm, and rooted in truth. You do not need to shrink to be accepted or silence yourself to be loved. The moment you stop performing and start standing firm, you begin to live with peace that no one can take. If you felt this, subscribe to stay connected for more lessons that help you grow stronger from within. In the comments, write "Stand Strong" as your reminder to stay grounded in your own worth. Keep going. The next lesson will take you even deeper into unshakable calm and self-respect.